And he is from PIN, which is Performance Excellence Network. The Performance Excellence Network of the Black Hills helps leaders identify their strengths and improvement in opportunities and builds networks that bring information, resources, knowledge, and best practices to organizations desiring to improve. And without anything else, I give you Mitch.
Good morning. Are we hearing me okay? Is this working right? Okay. All right, well, so I've got a military background, so I can't present anything without slides as a crutch. So don't let these fool you, though. I won't take very much of your time. But I am going to teach you a little bit something today, as you can see from our topic here. So first, here's my agenda, because everybody's got one. So this is what we're going to talk about today a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about where I am and where I come from. So I'm a Black Hills native. I grew up on a ranch out by the Wasta area. Ranching was kind of my life growing up. Right out of high school, joined the South Dakota National Guard. Got a bachelor's in industrial engineering from the School of Mines, along with a Lean Six Sigma certification. I was hired right out of college by Pete Lean & Sons. Was there about a year and a half. I was going to lead their quality program on the ground, you know, breaking new ground for them. It was going to be great. That's a pun I just thought of, but going to be really good stuff. Year and a half later, they said, you know, quality isn't really something we're interested in. That's not a knock on Pete Lean, but they were just going different directions, and they said, you know, we can keep you on as long as you can, you know, find yourself busy with environmental stuff, but go ahead and start looking. So I went into what people call being a guard bum. And so what that is you basically jump onto little National Guard jobs wherever you can, 6 months, a year at a time. Every year at the end of the fiscal year, or in the case of a shutdown, you're always wondering if you're going to be brought back on. I did that for about 8 years. In that time, I spent a year in South America as part of our liaison program with our partnership country, and really great experience. Didn't really know where I was going to go. Kind of at the end of my rope, though, thinking, okay, I got to grow up one of these days, find a real job. Well, about that time, a job with the Guard opened up. I came on active duty with the National Guard, set for life, you know, gonna work there until I retire, great benefits, great retirement plan, all of that. And that would have been my introduction up until about 2 months ago when I signed up for this job, or for the speaking engagement. Happened to have coffee with a friend of mine over at Ascent Innovation, the business incubator, and walked out of there with a job offer. So today I can say that the next role in my life is going to be with the incubator here in Rapid City, and so I'm really excited about that, but that's a story for a different time. So my current journey that I'm going to talk about today starts out with a map like this one. This is probably one of the greatest motivators in the military. So our chief of staff about 8 years ago was out at a conference, a nationwide conference, and they do this with every program in the military. They talk about a program for a while, and then they show a map like this that you can see behind me. And there might as well be flashing lights around your state that you're from. Because when you're red, that means something's wrong, and that means that something's going to be fixed. That day, our chief of staff sent an email back to all of our staff saying, we're going to get involved in this Baldrige program, the Performance Excellence Program for the National Guard. So I happened to be in the right spot where my boss said, hey, look up Baldrige and see what this is all about. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what we're doing. So I looked it up. Got on a mailing list, started learning about it, and that's really where my journey first started. So what is Baldrige? Well, in the 80s, the Secretary of Commerce was Malcolm Baldrige, and he saw that Japan was kicking our butt. They were making phones, well, early phones, technology, cars, all that, faster, better, higher quality than we were, and our economy was going in the tank because of it. So Secretary Baldrige said, all right, I need my smart guys to come up with a criteria that we can kind of do some peer evaluation on and basically raise all of ourselves up by evaluating ourselves across the board on process improvement, performance excellence, things like that. So this framework that was developed and is still in practice today is something that's really actually changed my life. I've always been a process improvement type person. You'd heard a little bit about my background, engineering. Always been very organized. I love reading about time management, studying all that stuff. It's my passion. And this really kind of brought into it. So the framework very purposely doesn't tell you how to do anything. It just asks that you know how you're doing it. Do you have a process for it? So let's talk a little bit about the way we think about operations. I need a volunteer. This is the interaction portion. Marie, do you have employees? Doesn't really matter.
Yes,
How do you communicate with your employees?
verbally through email, business planning, SOPs, standard operating procedures.
Okay, great. So policy, email, verbal, phone, meetings, things like that. That sounds reasonable, right? That's probably standard for everybody. Okay. Marie, if you would you ask me how I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Sure. Mitch, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Marie, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Peanut butter, jelly, bread.
Yeah, but how do you do it?
I didn't answer your question, right? I gave you the ingredients. And in a way, that's what you did for me as well. You gave me the ingredients for communicating with your employees. So if we dig a little bit deeper into that, as we mentioned, phone calls, email, meetings, things like that, those are the ingredients. But how do you do it? So you can't improve your process by subtracting or adding ingredients, right? You can only improve your product. If you change what peanut butter you use and things like that, it changes the taste maybe of your sandwich, but it doesn't change how fast you made it, how many you can make, things like that. So let's go to a communication process. So let's say you receive information from your CEO, Marie, or anybody, and you have to first determine, is this information relevant to me? Is it relevant to my team? Is it something that I can answer? Is it something that I can answer right away and get back to him? Is it something my team needs to know? When does my team didn't know it? Do they need to know it right now? Do I need to have an all-hands meeting this second because this is groundbreaking information that's going to change the way we do business? Or can I just print it out and put it on the bulletin board above the water cooler? Then from there, you decide, how do I need to get this information out and how fast? So you send an email out, and then your managers, your team, has to do the same thing. Can I just answer the boss so they can get an answer back to the other boss? Do I need to send an email out? Do I need to have an all-hands meeting? And so on and so forth. And then you see at the end of the process, you take the appropriate action, you acknowledge receipt of the communication, and you go about your day. So that's how we communicate with our employees. But it's not something we think about very often. And I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, both because I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and because it's a great metaphor for that. Because it's a very simple idea. You think, yeah, peanut butter, jelly bread, whatever, But if you were to really break down how you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we would probably all do it very differently, Most of you would do it wrong, probably. I mean, I can tell you how to do it right. But we can all agree there's a lot of different ways to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So why is this important? And there's really where you come to my journey today. Well, you need repeatable, well-defined processes in order to carry out your business. Last week, Matt talked a little bit about, he's really getting into his business and, he has trouble delegating to his workforce. And what I would argue to Matt and to anybody, and I would tell this to him if he was in the room, is that's because you don't trust your employees to carry out the processes like you want them to. I think it was Patton that said that I only trust my commanders, they're going to make the same decision that I did. And that makes a lot of sense, but how can you do that if you haven't instilled that trust in them? One, it's just a straight trust factor, but it's also, have you laid out the processes? If you work in a call center, we've all seen them probably, or you heard them on the phone, they're scripted. When you say this, they say this back. And that's done on purpose because you don't want call center employees just going rogue, saying whatever they think when they answer the phone. So scripted processes are key to your day-to-day operations. This, as managers, CEOs, startup entrepreneurs, things like that, this is key to running your business because otherwise you'll never get to actually running your business, actually getting into your vision, thinking about your mission. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because every day, all you're thinking about is, does my employee know what to do when a customer comes in the room? When the customer calls on the phone? When the power goes out? All of those things. So today I stand before you as the Black Hills chapter spokesman for Performance Excellence Network of the Black Hills, or PEN, as we like to call it. This organization is our direct line to the U.S. Department of Commerce. It started in Minnesota, this particular organization does, and there's state and regional programs all around the country. And what this does is it brings those Baldrige concepts of performance excellence, process improvement, process mapping to us. So in our case, what was formerly the Minnesota Council for Quality, now the Performance Excellence Network, handles Minnesota, South Dakota, and North Dakota. And they've been chartered by the Baldrige program to do that. And so in our case, for Western South Dakota, we're a Performance Excellence Network of the Black Hills, and we learn from each other and practice these tools through a variety of different ways. We do a morning forum, very similar to what you're doing here. We have a cup of coffee and we just talk about an aspect of performance excellence. You don't need to know anything about this criteria to come. It's really just those tools that we talk about. What are the keys to good leadership? It's all about intentionality. That's a word that I've really latched onto lately. Everything about both your work life and your personal life. If you're not intentionally, setting your goals, goal setting is an easy one. Goals have to be intentional. But if you're not intentionally going about all of your business, both at home and at work, you're going to keep spinning your wheels, and that's where PEN comes in. All organizations can benefit from this, large or small, nonprofits, government, commercial, all of that. So I, just really encourage you to start out, attend one of our sessions sometime. Then we do half-day workshops. There's a couple of people in this room that are going to be doing workshops coming up. We do full-day training. You can then become an evaluator as a volunteer, where you can go into other organizations and help them learn more about their processes. Again, that's such a great resource, but it's still not telling anyone how they're going to go about their business. It's just asking them that they have steps. And after you've done that a couple times, it's pretty clear, even when you're trying to convey it, whether or not you know that you have a process. Because you can go around in circles about whether or not you have a customer service process, or you can say, well, here, I'll show you my SOP, my standard operating procedures. That it's really the key, and the numbers really show that these companies, the Fortune 500 companies that are using this, all companies, their valuations are better, their efficiency is better, their workforce engagement, their workforce satisfaction is better, and so that's really the heart of where my journey is today. And I'm really excited now about this opportunity to go to Ascent Innovation, because that's going to give me even more opportunity to work on these tools with startups and other organizations, and that's really my journey for today. So thank you for your time.
Mitch Marie Strang with Edward Jones. So I have an in because I've heard Mitch's peanut butter and jelly process presentation a couple of times, but can you talk about the importance of those repeatable and documented processes in your business, especially for startups?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Marie. So I like to liken this to, whether you're a startup or wherever you're at, I see it in my organization, I see it in a lot of places. Documented processes that are repeatable are important to your organization's success and also to your own sanity. Think about if you are in an organization that depends on you for things, and we all are, but maybe you're not the boss. Life still goes on when you're not there. Think about if you take a day of vacation, or you take a sick day, or you retire. Someone's calling you, where are the keys to the shed where we keep the lawnmower? How do we turn on this AV system? Nobody else but you has ever done it before. Simple things like that. But then, hey, what do we do about these kind of customers? You're the ones that always handles our big valuation customers. What do we do when you're not there? So the importance really, and probably more to your sanity than anything else, is you can't unwind, you can't unplug if people are going to call you, or if you're worried that everyone can't live without you because the functions aren't repeated and documented. We like to talk about knowledge is power, and people hoard knowledge because they think that's how they get ahead and all that. I'd argue that that's inefficient both for yourself and for your organization, because the real leaders are people that leave behind the things in the way that it can still go on when you're not there, whether you go on to another organization or you're just gone for a week.
Russ Enns, retired biotech industry. Question is on continuous improvement. So So when do you make changes? You document, you follow, you get feedback, you're measuring, if people are staying on course. And where do you plug in continuous improvement?
Where?
Or how?
Where and how? Okay, thanks, Russ. I'd argue there's very few places that you don't plug it in, I guess. As I mentioned, I think these tools are very beneficial at all levels of companies, in all kinds of companies. I think the places to start are in your day-to-day operations. Lean Six Sigma, if you're familiar at all with that, it's basically the concept is to reduce the number of deficiencies. Parts per million is I can get into a whole math discussion if you want, but I can't. But really back to that, where and how is just start. Process mapping is such an amazing tool. If you sit down in a room with just a couple people and you lay out, whatever it is that you do in the very basic of steps, and just, okay, here's our start, and then, here's our first action step. Well, what's our next action step? Well, that depends on this. Okay, well now you've got a decision point because you've got to decide, is it a big customer or a small customer? What do they need? And then that has its own process. And so I think the biggest how is just first map out your processes. We talk a little bit about like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well, if I were to tell you that I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich by, I get out my peanut butter and then I walk down to my cellar and get my jelly because that's where we've always kept it. And I grab that and bring it back up, and then I spread it all on the bread, and then I cut it in half. Could you tell me possibly where we could improve that process?
Move your jelly.
Move the jelly, right? But if I just said, hey, it takes me 20 minutes to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you said, well, you need to fix something, but I don't know what it is. So I think that's the key probably, and it took me a little bit to get to that answer for you, Russ, but process mapping or just writing down your steps I think is the key, because until you know what it is you do, you can't improve your process. Thanks for the question.
This isn't really deep. Beth Amber Food with Isogenics. My husband loves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and boy, he's been really particular about telling me exactly how he likes them made. So I just find this really funny. But anyway, and this is personal. Would you say again how you pronounce your last name, please?
Sure, it's Nightingale.
Like Earl Nightingale? Nightingale?
So pretty much, yes.
Oh, it's spelled Nachtigall.
Yep. So if and linguists would get mad at this, and they have before. It's German, so Nachtigall, so it means night bird, which literally translates to nightingale.
Oh.
And then the South Dakota version of that is nightingale. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I worked at Pete Lean & Sons the same year you did.
Okay.
This was way back when, wasn't it? Doing
Yeah,
the
about 2007, 2008, something like that was when I was in there.
Yeah, well, maybe not, but I knew your name from way back when, and I thought, I bet I was doing payroll. You were
Well, I appreciate your work on payroll then while I was there.
So, I don't have any further questions, I really want to be clear on your name.
Thanks
you.
for that.
Constantine with US Bank. I guess my question is, if you have like an individual that is stuck in their way of making peanut butter and jelly sandwich and have been doing so for so many years, is there a strategy to go about, opening up a discussion, a dialogue to talk about the procedures without alleviating some of the defensive mechanisms that would probably come out when you tell somebody, well, you might be doing it wrong, or if they're stuck in their ways, they think this is how it needs to be done. Is there a strategy or helpful tips on how to have that conversations without having their guard up?
Well, Constantine, that's a tough one. And now you're getting into change management, which is another topic that I really enjoy. The initial conversation probably needs a trigger. So in my opinion at least, there's something that, there's certain things that you can allow to, like if that person's making their peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the break room and it takes them 20 minutes but they're still back on work on time, I guess you leave that one alone. But a trigger might be, reduced efficiency, lost sales, things like that. And I think I think a process can really become part of that person's annual review, that annual evaluation, because I think that also is a process step that is overlooked. There should be a step-by-step way that you go about reviewing with all of your employees. But, I think however it's done, a person has to have, their goals of the organization has goals for them, whether you're in sales or marketing or whatever it might be, you have metrics that you have to reach, or you should. And I think the conversation can be, we got to figure out some way to get you improving. You are here, you're an average employee or better than average, but we want you up here. And I think the easiest way for them to do that is improve their processes. Because it takes the personality out of it. And that, I go back to people taking leave and things like that. We oftentimes lean on, they say that busy people are the ones you give more tasks to. And, that's very true, but that's personality driven. So that person just keeps getting more tasks because they're the busy one. They can get things done. And hopefully they have processes to improve, but we need processes across the board that can be repeatable, and so that change is possible. And so I totally avoided your question there, Constantine, but I mean that's part of it, I guess, for me, is remove the personality and talk about the process. I think it's a much easier conversation not to talk about someone's flaws versus, hey, if you didn't take this many steps over to the printer every time, maybe printed all of your batches at once, things like that. I'm trying to give you very simple examples there, but something along those lines. I think you can attack the process with a little more success than their personality and get away with it for a while anyways.
Just a comment, motivation of employees getting to change to better ways. I think too many organizations are so fast running, they don't take the appropriate time to celebrate success. So, just a suggestion, celebrate successes, let people know that your contributions are valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that comment. And again, repeatable process to me. You see where, hey, we do a birthday cake every month for all of our employees. Oh, we missed the last 6, so hey, everybody that's had a birthday in the last 6 months, let's celebrate your birthday in June. So again, repeatable processes, whatever it is you're doing, you need to get on point with those so that, every time you finish a project, that a step in your process is let's celebrate it. Because otherwise, I think then you can get into the path of, we celebrated that one, and then, we're just too busy on this one. Well, then you kind of lost all of your motivation because, now you look like you're doing favoritism, things like that.
Deanna Beckett, character coach. I've been to a few of the PEN meetings and just started to understand what it's all about. And of course, my full-time JOB, there's some communication challenges there. How can PEN bring, not in my particular case, but how can PEN bring help into organizations? I know you mentioned one thing, but I'm just wondering, as an overall summary.
Sure. Thanks, Deanna. So,
Can I add on to that? My
Absolutely.
question's related to hers.
give me some time to think about it.
That's all.
Well, I work in real estate, and so you can imagine when you have all these independent contractors that work in different offices, and especially right now with the market being slow, agents are going to all different places trying to figure out how to do their business. So you take that, now look at the federal government. So my question for you with what she's saying is, how do you invent the process to start the process? Which is what she's asking.
Sure, okay. Well, so I think...
To become better at what you do, in your corporate.
Absolutely. Well, so to relate that back to PEN and how we can help. So I really like the name change. So they were called Minnesota Council for Quality. We obviously put a lot of pressure on them to change their name because we're not in Minnesota and we weren't going to convince anybody to come to a meeting about Minnesota. Performance Excellence Network. I really like that because the intent is to create a network around performance excellence, around talking about best practices. And so, we provide content, and then we very specifically tell that content provider, you sit down, you can help facilitate this conversation, but we're gonna have just as much, if not more time for collaborating. So if we have someone discuss customer service, for example, and they have a best practice in customer service, that's great, but we want them to sit down and everybody else talk about either the problems they're having in their area with customer service or other tips that they have. And so I think in terms of the process to start improving processes, I think it's having those conversations, and that's, I guess, where I think that this organization can really help, and this organization, 1 Million Cups, can be a part of. There's a lot of similarities back and forth. I've talked to this team here. We send people that come to ours to 1 Million Cups. 1 Million Cups sends people to us, and I think there's some great synergy that happens there. And I think that's the key, is just having that conversation, because a lot of this stuff, when you look back in hindsight, you'll go, well, that was common sense. But we know that common sense is kind of a rare commodity these days. It probably shouldn't be called common sense anymore. And it's, you look back and go, well, yeah, obviously we should have moved that printer out of the, back closet and forward where everybody could get to it and wouldn't take so many steps. But for some reason, we didn't move the printer for 20 years, so obviously it wasn't that common of a topic. And so I think to back to your question about how to start the process, I think it's just opening up the conversation, understanding that you even have processes, because a lot of companies, maybe in this room, will even go, well, I'm a one-man show, I don't really have any processes. I bet you do.
So I have
Go ahead.
okay. I have a comment and a question. Which I'm Leah with Insight Partners. I'm hired often by companies to go in and teach communication. I can tell you what doesn't work. What doesn't work is when the leadership is absent and they say, fix my people, because there's always the leadership element. Is that a true story?
Well, absolutely, and that's something that I've struggled. So in industrial engineering, if you're a school of mines person, IE is the abbreviation, and a lot of other majors will call it imaginary engineering. But it's really people engineering. It's systems engineering. And so we're not designing the next widget, or we're not figuring out how much rock you need on your road. We're fixing your people, or fixing the organization, and we're a lot of times, unfortunately, the first to go when cuts are made. Quality programs are a lot of times the ones that are cut right away, which is unfortunate, both for my livelihood and just in general. But absolutely the key. I think with any change, your leadership has to be on board with that, and it's really unfortunate when you see that when anytime you're consulting or anytime a group and the leaders kind of go, yeah, teach my employees how to do that, and I'll get briefed back on it, because I think it all has to start with the top, whether it's change management or improving processes, improving communication. You can't do it without the leadership being involved.
Okay, so Melanie Torno with Torno Mediation Mental Health Services. You brought up the one-man show mentality. So some of us in this room, we are the only employee of our business. So what recommendations would you have for people that are in their business by themselves or pre-employee stage for utilizing PEN? Like what kind of services or benefits can they use by getting involved with PEN?
Sure. So again, I mentioned that I'm moving over to Ascent, and I'm really excited about that opportunity to get in with those startups, because if you look at the Baldrige framework, and it asks you, if you really get into it, it asks you to answer a lot of questions, and it's broken out into categories: leadership, strategy, customer focus, and then the last category is results, or your measurements, basically, what the metrics and things like that. I think starting a continuity binder right away and answering those questions is really in some ways more beneficial and a little bit easier in some ways, because the first thing you do in a Baldrige framework is you start with an organizational profile. And this is before you even talk about your processes. It asks you, who are your customers? Who are your customer segments? If you have a workforce, who is your workforce? What's your communication methods for your different workforce segments? What's your communication methods for your different customers? And so I think getting in on the ground floor and really even just answering an organizational profile would be huge, because you can still move your glacier a little bit. You're able, because you're setting your vision, and you don't have to ask anybody else, and you don't have to change anybody else's mind. you can change your vision a little bit. And I think that that's really where it can be key, is that right up front, you're able to answer some of those questions and really set your vision. A lot of organizations, they shelve strategic planning, but they also don't do it until they're well down the road, where really you should have, that should be the first thing in your business plan is your 5-year plan, what your vision is, what your growth plan, all of those things. And again, repeatable processes where you can go back and look, okay, well, last year my growth plan was to get to 10% more clients next year. Where am I at? So you've repeated your process of looking at it again, and annual reviews, and that's something that it really asks within the framework and the process is are repeatable. So are you doing annually? Are you doing it on a whim, which is not the way to do it, in my opinion? Are you doing it quarterly? Are you doing it every 5 years? Well, if you're a startup and you say, I'm going to review my plan every 5 years, you may not ever review your plan, And so I just personally think that startups and one-man shows are a great spot to get in on this stuff and answer those basic questions, because you're not going to get so much into the workforce development and how you communicate with your employees, but you're going to get into some areas where you can really look at yourself. I share this with a lot of people about customers. We did our organizational profile the first time we got back into this program, and we had the discussion about customers, and we had high-ranking officials in our organization almost come to blows, stand up and start fighting each other about who our customers were. And if you really think about that and ask your employees, if you have them, or your team, if you got a partner or something like that, who are our customers? I bet you'll be really surprised that you don't all have the same answer. And it's quite an exercise, or ask some of your best clients, who do you think my customers are? I think talking to your suppliers or collaborators and things like that, and asking them, who do you think my customers are, can really be an insight into your organization, because who you think they are and who they think they are two different things. And then what product do you think you're providing versus what is it they are asking for?
I have another question for you, Mitch, and this is about our first aid company, Twilight First Aid and Safety. So we know we have a lot of processes. We've done well with that. We know where some of our holes are. One of them is our inventory management. The thing that's in the way is money. And I know KP could help us with that, but it's also competing priorities. But what are some other barriers that you've seen where businesses maybe see where their gaps are, they see where they need better processes, but they're not doing it for whatever reason?
Well, I think you mentioned the word priorities, and I think that's the absolute key. And again, have a process for deciding your priorities. The things that you're measuring are the things that are going to get results. That's where your emphasis is going to be. So if inventory management is a key to your bottom line, because without understanding your inventory, you're losing money out the back door every month. Money no longer is an issue, because you'll throw away some of the other things you're doing. You'll have to, or at least put them on the side and go, if we don't improve our, invest some time and money into inventory management, we're not going to be in business. And so I think priorities is the absolute key, especially in times when, we probably won't ever be in another time where resources aren't tight and time is of the essence and things like that. But without prioritization, I think that's, you're always going to be in that, the battle of if everything's a priority, then nothing it is. And so, and that's tough, especially when you're a startup and you are sure that you're doing the 25 most important things you need to do, when maybe it should be more like 5. All right, so I had a process for this, so I'm ready. I'm really excited about where the Black Hills is at right now for a lot of things, but one of the areas that I'm excited about is that there are a lot of professional development opportunities these days, organizational development opportunities. There's 1 Million Cups, there's the Black Hills Leadership Development Luncheon, Day of Excellence, Morning Fill-Up at the Garage, ours, the Penn Week monthly forums and workshops and things like that. What my ask is that you take a look at these organizations, you provide feedback to them, attend when you can, keep attending 1 Million Cups, love for you to come check us out. Like I said, there's a lot of synergy, and at least for me, and I think Melanie and Gordon and all of you in the room, I don't think you're in this to make any money, is that right?
No, this is all free.
Yeah, right. And I'm also not in Penn to make money. That there's no money coming back to me for that. Same with all those other organizations. JFK, a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that's key here. If our healthcare system has better processes, that helps us all. If startups come here and they get resources and more confidence, that helps us all. And so I'm really on a path to try to get these organizations networked somehow into where we're talking about, what is it that we can do to help each other, in this professional development world. Maybe we meet as a steering committee, once a year, once a quarter or something, and make sure that we're not over the top of each other. We're not doing the same things, we're not duplicating efforts. Make sure we're not doing things at the exact same time. And in the case of things like speakers and bringing in people, and how can we leverage that to where if they're going to come to coffee at 1 Million Cups in the morning, then they can come to a luncheon later in the day. And that's my ask, I guess, is that you help facilitate that conversation and really just keep showing up to these events, because I think these are powerful for our community, and they'll only stay alive if people continue to participate. And feedback, I want to make sure I hit that too, is 1 Million Cups, I'm sure, Penn for sure, can always use your feedback on, are we doing these at the right time? Is it the right topic? 1 Million Cups is an affiliate of a national chapter. I'm an affiliate of a regional chapter. And so there's limitations to a certain extent, but you also have to have it what's right for the Black Hills. And I think that all of you can be a huge part of that. And I appreciate you coming today. And I'd appreciate you coming to our events in the future. And I'll leave back on this slide if you want to get on our Facebook page or something and check us out. So.
All right, let's give it up for Mitch.
Thank you.